Welcome to today's video. We're tackling a controversial but crucial topic for working adults: whether to slow down investing to pay college costs in cash, or to take on moderate student debt and keep investing aggressively. We'll unpack the math, the psychology, and a practical framework you can use right away. Let's dive in, and then move into our agenda to set the stage. Here's our roadmap. First, we'll discuss why this decision matters for late bloomers trying to reach financial independence. Next, we'll examine the math that tends to favor continued investing, even when student loans are involved. Then, we'll layer in the psychological realities of debt stress. After that, we'll use a decision framework and specific action steps with tax-advantaged accounts. We'll also walk through scenarios and test your understanding with short quizzes. Finally, we'll consolidate key takeaways and close with an important disclaimer. Now let's start with why this matters. This matters because for late bloomers, time is the scarcest resource. Delaying investment to pay tuition in cash can mean missing out on valuable compounding years. Conversely, using moderate, well-structured student debt, especially federal loans with relatively low rates, may allow investments to keep growing. The question isn't whether debt is good or bad in the abstract. It's whether the trade-off between loan costs and expected market returns improves or harms your long-term plan. With that context, let's transition to the math that often drives this argument. The numbers often support continuing to invest while using moderate federal loans. When expected market returns exceed the interest rate on federal loans, the spread can create a positive leverage effect. For instance, if your loan rate is around 4 to 5% and your long-term expected return is 8%, allocating dollars to investments rather than paying tuition in cash can yield higher compounded outcomes. For late starters aiming at COASTFIRE, these early compounding years are especially valuable. A simple illustration: investing $10,000 at 8% for 20 years grows to roughly $46,610. In many cases, the total interest paid on a well-managed federal loan is less than this foregone growth, which means the math supports investing. However, math is only part of the picture. Next, we need to bring in human psychology and risk tolerance. This flowchart visualizes the decision path. You begin by checking whether loans are federal or private, since federal loans typically have more favorable terms and protections. Next, you compare your expected market return against your loan rate. If expected returns exceed the loan rate, that's a point in favor of continuing to invest. Then you assess the total debt size and the resulting monthly payment as a share of your take-home pay. If the payment is small and affordable, it supports the investing path. Before proceeding, you confirm you have an emergency fund and that you are at least capturing any employer 401k match. If these conditions are met, the flowchart guides you toward investing aggressively while using moderate federal loans. If the loan is large, private, or the payment threatens your financial stability, the flow suggests prioritizing faster payoff. Now let's compare these paths side by side to make the trade-offs concrete. On the left, paying cash now avoids interest costs and simplifies finances. It can reduce stress for those who strongly dislike debt. However, it may sacrifice compounding returns during your study period and could delay a COASTFIRE target. On the right, using moderate federal loans preserves investment momentum, especially if the expected return exceeds the loan rate. Federal loans may offer income-driven repayment, deferment, and forgiveness options. The trade-offs include the need for strong discipline, tolerance for some risk, and managing a fixed monthly payment. If the payment is minor relative to your take-home pay, investing while carrying moderate federal debt can be advantageous. If it threatens your financial peace, accelerating payoff can be the better psychological choice. Next, let's quantify these ideas with a scenario table. This table outlines 5 stylized scenarios. In Scenario A, federal loans at 4% with an 8% expected return and a $30,000 balance generally tilt toward investing while borrowing in moderation. In Scenario B, the spread is narrower, so you might invest but watch the payment closely. In Scenario C, private loans at 9% exceed the expected return, which supports paying down faster and avoiding additional borrowing. In Scenario D, even with federal rates under 5%, a $200,000 balance may be too large, so you would likely reduce or avoid borrowing. In Scenario E, a larger spread and a small balance favor investing aggressively in tax-advantaged accounts. With that in mind, let's convert this into a concrete playbook. Here's a pragmatic sequence. First, design an education path that uses lower-cost entry points such as community college. Then transfer to a four-year institution to minimize expenses. Second, secure any employer 401k match because that is effectively a guaranteed return. Third, establish a 3 to 6 month emergency fund to reduce the risk of financial shocks. Fourth, fund the most expensive years with moderate federal loans while avoiding high-rate private loans whenever possible. Fifth, automate investing using target date funds or low-cost index funds within your 401k and IRA. Sixth, redo the math every year. Compare your expected return with your loan rates and recalibrate. Seventh, cap your monthly student loan payment at a conservative share of your take-home pay, such as 8 to 10%, to keep your budget resilient. Next, let's discuss how stress and lifestyle fit into this strategy. Even if the math leans toward investing, your mental well-being matters. If carrying loans undermines your sleep or your sense of security, consider paying them down faster. Set a personal payment cap. For example, keeping total student loan payments under 8 to 10% of your take-home pay. Take advantage of federal loan guardrails, such as income-driven repayment plans, deferment, or temporary forbearance, to handle shocks. Monitor a simple ratio of your investment contribution rate to your loan payment burden. If the burden grows too large, rebalance toward payoff. Now, let's prioritize tax-advantaged accounts and show how they fit in your budget. Prioritize the 401k match because it is effectively free money. Next, fund your IRA or HSA if eligible to maximize tax efficiency. Use regular cash flow for lower-cost educational steps such as community college or early credits, and reserve loans for the more expensive 4-year stretch. Automation helps maintain consistency and reduces decision fatigue. With these priorities in place, let's test your understanding with a quick quiz. Question: if your federal loan APR is 4% and your long-term expected return is 8%, which strategy does the math typically favor, assuming a moderate loan size and affordable payments? Options: 1. Pay tuition entirely in cash to avoid any interest. 2. Use moderate federal loans and keep investing aggressively. 3. Stop investing until loans are fully paid off. 4. Max out private loans for higher leverage. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is to use moderate federal loans and keep investing aggressively. When your expected return materially exceeds the loan rate, the spread favors investing long-term, assuming the total debt remains moderate and the monthly payment is comfortably affordable. Next, let's try another quick question focused on loan structure risk. Question: which is generally riskier for a late bloomer targeting COASTFIRE? Options: 1. $50,000 in federal loans at 4.5% with income-driven repayment options. 2. $200,000 in private loans at 8 to 10% with limited protections. 3. $20,000 in federal loans at 5% with a stable job. 4. $30,000 in federal loans at 3.8% and a strong emergency fund. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We'll discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is $200,000 in private loans at 8 to 10% with limited protections. High-rate private debt and large balances significantly increase risk, reduce flexibility, and can undermine your path to COASTFIRE. Therefore, it often makes sense to minimize such borrowing and prioritize payoff if already incurred. Next, let's visualize how education, borrowing, and investing can align over time. This timeline shows how you can align educational milestones with borrowing and investing. In the early years, keep costs low with community college while building your emergency fund and capturing the 401k match. As you transfer to a 4-year school, use moderate federal loans to cover higher costs while continuing to invest. Use internship income and any raises or bonuses to increase contributions. After graduation, consider an income-driven repayment plan if needed, and escalate 401k and IRA contributions. Over the following years, your loan balance declines and your investments compound. By the later period, you approach COASTFIRE with a small or eliminated loan balance and a strong investment snowball. Now let's lock in the most important points. Remember these takeaways. First, the spread between expected returns and loan rates is crucial. If returns exceed rates, Continued investing often wins over time. Second, ensure the total debt and the payment share of your income remain moderate. Third, federal loans typically provide better protections than private loans, so avoid high-rate private loans when possible. Fourth, prioritize capturing your employer 401k match and using tax-advantaged accounts early. Fifth, honor your psychology. If debt undermines your peace of mind, prioritize faster payoff. Before we finish, let's add a brief disclaimer. This content is for educational purposes only and is not financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult a qualified, fiduciary financial advisor for advice tailored to your situation. Interest rates, tax rules, loan programs, and market returns can change, and your risk tolerance and time horizon may differ from the examples shown. With that in mind, let's wrap up with a concise summary. To summarize, consider using moderate federal loans to preserve your investing momentum when expected returns exceed loan rates. Keep payments affordable and consistent with your stress tolerance. Prioritize your 401k match, IRA or HSA, and automate contributions. Avoid high-rate private debt, and reassess your plan annually. Remember, debt is a tool. Used intentionally and in moderation, it can help accelerate your path to financial independence. Finally, here's a creative call to action. Thank you for watching. If this video helped you reframe tuition versus retirement trade-offs, please like the video, share it with someone pursuing financial independence, and subscribe for more actionable content. I would love to hear your experience. Post your story or questions in the comments, and let's learn together.